remember to stay hydrated, and today we're going to be checking out the brand new Tactile Knife Co Maverick. This thing is new for 2023. I have a lot to say about it, but for now, sit back, relax, and let's get it. So today we're going to be checking out the brand new Tactile Knife Co Maverick. This thing is brand new for 2023. It's designed by Richard Rogers. I've been carrying this thing for about a month and I'm ready to share with you guys my full impressions. The Maverick has its positives and negatives and we'll cover all that stuff in this video. But first off, I wanted to talk about the two different variations you can get with this model. As you can see in front of me, I've got the black Richlight Micarta version. They also have a titanium version. Now both models are going to be different in price. The Richlight Micarta version is about $249, and then moving up to titanium, you're looking at about $349. So, I mean, if you guys go for the titanium variant, it's actually not too far off from the renowned Tactile Knife Co Rockwall. In terms of the overall specs, I'll be leaving all that stuff in the description below, so that way you guys can check it out anytime in this video. All you guys really need to know is this is a full-size knife, and I'll give you guys a few size comparisons here. First off, I want to show you guys this thing next to the Tactile Knife Co Rockwall. The Maverick is going to be significantly bigger than the Rockwall. You guys want to keep that in mind if you're looking for a small EDC knife. Here are the two knives closed next to each other. As you can tell, in terms of thickness, they're going to be about the same. However, the Maverick does feel a little bit slimmer. And then in terms of every single dimension, the Maverick is going to be bigger. Let's show you a quick comparison next to the Benchmade bailout. And yeah, I think this is probably going to be the best knife to compare the Maverick to, just because of its overall size and form factor. You'll notice the Maverick does have a longer cutting edge, but in terms of the overall length, if we do include the glass breaker on the bailout, they're virtually the same. You'll notice both of these knives are sporting the axis lock mechanism or crossbar lock, whatever you want to call it, but that's what makes the Maverick special. Is it's Tactile Knife Co's first go at it with the crossbar locking mechanism. In terms of all the hardware, it's going to be titanium. You've got a really nice MagnaCut blade, which I absolutely adore because Tactile Knife Co has pretty much just swapped over to MagnaCut primarily with their blades. And as many of you guys know, MagnaCut is probably my most favorite blade steel out there. It's just really good at retaining an edge, very corrosion resistant so it won't rust, and it has a really cool name. Before we jump into the rest of this review, let's give a quick word for today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by the House of Blades, a premier knife dealer located in Fort Worth, Texas. I had the opportunity to visit House of Blades down at Blade Show, Texas, and man, do they have one of the coolest knife shops that I've ever been to. They pretty much stock every single knife brand that you can possibly imagine, anywhere from Benchmade, Spyderco, Chris Reeve knives, Microtech, and a bunch of others. We also had the chance to check out their really cool laser engraving service. That laser room is just absolutely insane. If you guys want to do any customization to your blades or even hell your Yeti water bottles, you can actually just send over your files and they will get that custom logo or whatever it is on whatever object you're laser engraving. If you guys are interested in getting a knife from House of Blades, make sure that you use code EDM for 10% off your entire order. Thank you so much to House of Blades for sponsoring our channel. Let's get back to the video. So let's get into the details about the negatives, the positives, my overall conclusion of this knife, starting off with the negatives. There are going to be a few, and the first one I wanted to point out is going to be the pocket clip. This pocket clip is just not that appealing to the eye. I think it's like the biggest eyesore in this super sleek minimalistic design, and the reason being is because of the posts that this thing has to attach the pocket clip to the knife. I haven't really seen this done in other knives, but basically you've got a couple spacers here that will retain the pocket clip, but then it makes this pocket clip kind of bulge out. In my opinion, this thing just kind of feels like an afterthought, and they could have done a little bit better with the pocket clip design. Just take a look at Benchmade and what they've done. They have this deep carry pocket clip that is just screwed straight into these scales. I think they could have just done that with this one. Now, in terms of the pocket clip, this is a very functional pocket clip as it was intended to, and it will fit into thicker pants. But overall, I'm not a fan of the pocket clip. I believe they can innovate this a little bit more. Again, this is their first try at it with the crossbar lock. It might have to do with the design. The next negative I want to talk about is taking apart the knife. So it's actually going to be a little bit different than any other knife I've experienced. It also does resort back to the pocket clip, funny enough. And when I went to go take apart the knife, it does have these two T8 screws holding the pocket clip in, but then it has an Allen key to remove these two barrel spacers. But basically these two spacers have an additional additional lug that you'll have to unscrew with an Allen key. And the thing is, when you go to remove the pocket clip spacer, it does also disconnect from the interior barrel. I think it's actually holding together the entire body. This knife is an absolute disaster to take apart, so if you guys plan on grabbing one, I would suggest getting some practice on some other knives and then take apart this one. When it comes to maintaining something, I do enjoy a knife that's going to be a little bit easier to maintenance. This knife is beautiful, but there's a lot of stuff hidden behind these scales, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment because that kind of just draws into the positives. The next negative I had is going to be about a super minute detail that not a ton of people will realize, but I did because I just handle a ton of knives, and that's going to be the overall blade centering from factory. When I first got the knife, the blade just wasn't centered whatsoever. It was off to the left way too much, almost to the point where the blade was actually hitting the scale. Now, I did tune it up as much as I possibly can. Like I said, I did take this thing apart, and even with tuning and all that stuff, it still does veer to the left just a tad. And just to reiterate, it is Tactile Knife Co's first go around doing the crossbar lock, so there is some forgiveness there, but moving forward, I would like to see some tighter tolerances. Now that we've got the negatives put away, let's talk about the positives, and the first thing I wanted to cover is going to be the overall weight. This thing is pretty much feather light if you guys go for the Rich Light Micarta version, and when I weighed it, it actually came out to 2.7 ounces, which is really crazy, especially for the size of this knife. The next positive is how this thing feels in the pocket. It is a big knife, however, it's going to be very sleek and modern. It's got these contoured scales, so it just feels really good when you go to put it in the pocket in the first place. This thing doesn't clutter up your pockets. The contoured scales just kind of morph to the pocket and make it seem like it's not even there, and that is a huge positive. Remember how I was talking about the internals of this knife and how it's just chaos when you go to take it apart? A few things that I did find that are positives are going to be involving the pivot as well as the crossbar locking mechanism. The first thing I noticed is it does have an adjustable spring, and you can adjust the tension whether you want it tighter or looser. That may be one thing that they have taken notes on with the clutch lock from Kaiser. I'm not saying that they're copying the clutch lock, but that's a really cool piece of innovation that you don't see in Benchmade knives. Next, in terms of the pivot, this thing is operating off of phosphor bronze washers. Now, phosphor bronze washers are going to be very popular in the crossbar locking mechanism, as you can see in pretty much every single Benchmade knife. What was really special about this one specifically is it does have these cut through holes that basically resemble like a Chris Reeve knife phosphor bronze washer. I believe that's just going to help out the action of the knife and really help keep that debris out of the pivot. The next positive I wanted to talk about is going to be the overall aesthetic of this knife. It just looks really, really clean. The overall aesthetics just really appeal to my eye just because it has very simplistic geometry. The blade to handle ratio are just very balanced. It just looks like a very sleek knife. I would personally remove all of the branding from this thing just to make it look that much nicer. And aside from the billboarding on the blade, you'll actually see some really cool details. For example, check out this really nice pivot. This titanium pivot inlay is going to be in this triangular shape, which just looks really nice. And they've actually gone ahead and added the pattern to the pivot inlay to match up with the scales, whether it's titanium or Rich Light Micarta. Those subtle details are like the cherry on top when it comes to the overall aesthetic of this knife. The last positives I have to talk about are going to be the action and ergonomics. This thing feels amazing in the hand, fits mine really well, and I wear a large glove size, so this is just a perfect all-around size for me personally. And in terms of the action, it just feels amazing to open and close it. It's very drop shutty, which is really cool because this thing isn't even riding off of bearings. The thumb stud is placed in a really nice spot, so that way you can just get that flick on. If you want to do a reverse flick, that's no problem, or just a standard thumb flick. This thing is just great. So who do I think this knife is for? I believe this is going to be the perfect beginner USA made knife. If you're looking to spend about 250 bucks, pick up the black Rich Light Micarta version, or if you want to be a little bit more bougie, pick up the titanium version for $100 more. But if you're looking to get your very first USA made knife with premium materials like MagnaCut blade steel, titanium all over the place, and with the crossbar locking mechanism, look no further, the Maverick is the knife for you. This knife gets my seal of approval, and it might be Knife of the Year 2023. Who knows? We still have an entire year ahead of us, but this is definitely going to be a runner-up. If you've made it this far in the video, throw me a like if you like this content, throw me a dislike if you disliked it, and of course, thank you guys so much for spending your time with me today. I guess we'll have to catch you on the next one. Peace out.